Ah,
All righty. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone's having a good day. And if you're watching this after the fact, I hope you're having a good day whenever you do watch it. We're joined by a wonderful, wonderful guest. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. And actually, he's done an interview with Jason Collins over at Interviews with MACV-SOG Warriors and Veterans that was outstanding going through his career. And we've been lucky enough to get Mr. Bob Ramsey to join us today. And he's got a just an absolutely illustrious career in the Special Forces from very, very early on. He was in the Mike Force as well, and also was in SOG at CCN, and a lot of stuff going in between all of those. So we're going to go ahead and let Mr. Bob get started here. Mr. Bob, thank you for joining us. I greatly appreciate it, and going to hand it off to you.
okay, great. And well, thanks for having me. Like you say, it's been a while since we finally got to doing it, but here we are. And so I'll just go ahead and start from the beginning, and which began with me graduating from high school. And my parents wanted me to go to college. My dad was a professor here at the University of Arizona. And so it was kind of logical that they would want me to do that. But I said no, and I enlisted airborne unassigned. So I went, did basic and AIT, and got sent to Fort Bragg in North Carolina, and went to jump school and was then assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division. And I started off working with assigned to the uh, fire control for the division, and which was fortuitous because that would come in handy for me later on in my career. Uh, and I had no idea that special forces even existed. They were there on Fort Bragg as the 77th Special Forces Group. Well, I applied for that and got an answer back that we only take NCOs. Well, I had yet to be anointed, so I had to wait a while. But towards the end of my second year in the Army, uh, I got a blood stripe and was promoted to buck sergeant, a three striper. A blood striper, for those that don't know what that is somebody gets court martialed and reduced to a rank. Well, it becomes available to somebody else in the same company. And I was fortunate enough to get that. And at the same time, I was given the position of an air traffic controller, the ones that were the frontline controllers for air support. And that really came to help later on in my career, especially during Vietnam. So it was about that time that I reapplied for Special Forces, and this was 2 years into the Army, and they accepted me this time. So I reported on Smoke Bomb Hill, and at that time there was no training group or anything like that. Uh, they had the people that were being allowed in at that time uh, just reported into, I think they called it training company. It was just one company that did the administrative processing. So once through that, I, like other people that were coming in with me, just got assigned to one of the companies in the group. So I was assigned to Delta Company, and the reason that I got signed there was because I spoke Spanish. And they knew at that time that they were going to establish a group in Latin America. And so uh, I was there uh, until 1962, there on Smoke Bomb Hill and Delta Company. And at that time, they pulled the trigger and activated Delta Company to go to the Canal Zone. And so we left Fort Bragg on a train to New York City. From New York City, we got on a troop transport and went by cruise ship down to the Canal Zone. And we stopped in Puerto Rico and Guantanamo, and then Fort Bragg. Well, taking one step backwards, while I was still waiting to go to the Canal Zone in 62, I made Staff Sergeant, E6. So I arrived in Panama as Staff Sergeant. Well, it's 1962, and we're getting Delta Company all set up and observing what our mission was going to be in Latin America. And lo and behold, I went out to the bulletin board one day and found that my team sergeant had put me in for promotion, and I was promoted to E7 Sergeant First Class with only 4 years in the Army. I heard all kinds of things like, "Oh, you're the only one in the Army like that. You're a baby." Most of it was nice, so and everything, and everybody thought well of me at that point. Wow. But I stayed in Delta Company there from 62 until 66, at which time I put in a direct to Vietnam. 66, Vietnam was going on full blown. But I'll back up and tell you a little bit about what I did in Latin America. Well, our mission down there was counterinsurgency. And so we were deployed on mobile training teams throughout the Caribbean and South America and Central America. So I made one of these deployments in Dominican Republic, did some training in Panama itself, Bolivia, Colombia, Peru, and so I did get to get around in Latin America a good bit. In fact, it excited me so much that I decided that when I got out, when I retired, I was going to go to work for the government in some capacity in Latin America. So anyway, that's a kind of.
I hate to interrupt, but didn't you could add on to it? Didn't you come across, or weren't you in Bolivia?
Hang on, bud. My little dog is
wanting to be heard.
Yeah, she's. Katie, quit that. She has been such a comfort to me in the last few months,
They're
okay,
sweethearts.
Okay, go ahead. Tell me what you were saying.
Wasn't Che being hunted at around this time as well? Che Guevara?
I'm not understanding that.
Wasn't Che Guevara being hunted around this time?
No, he was. We trained the Ranger unit that wound up getting him, but that was a year or two later. A sister team was able to get Che. Yeah, but it was during that time.
Wow.
So other than that, there was no, we didn't get into battles or anything like that. It was just mostly training, but training that helped me so much, because when I got to Vietnam, I had heard about the Mike Force and had decided that that's what I wanted to be assigned to. And so luckily I was assigned to B Company, which was responsible for the Highlands, the Second Corps area. Vietnam, if you remember, was divided into 4 corps areas, and the Central Highlands were 2 corps. So that's where I went. But the Mike Force was only accepting people based on interviews. Well, I had gone over there with a friend of mine. We traveled together all over there. We both got assigned to B Company, and we both wanted to go to the Mike Force. So we got set up for an interview with the commander of the 2 Corps Mike Force. And we both were interviewed, and I was accepted. And my friend, who had had a previous tour in Vietnam, was not accepted. Go figure that out. So
Wow.
I use that to weaponize him with a lot in the later years. And then by that time, I was a pretty senior E7. I got assigned as a team sergeant in the 2 Corps Mike Force. And so I hadn't been there hardly at all when we got the order that we needed to. That was my first team right there. And I could name all those people, but
Klotz and Sarah, right
there's
there.
only 2 of us still alive out of that group. And all of that training I did in Latin America really prepared me for what we were going to do as a Mike Force. And the Mike Force, of course, we were responsible for, helping. We were the cavalry, the white hats for anybody in trouble, be it a camp that was under siege, a downed pilot, providing security for one of the conventional units, helping anybody in trouble out in the jungle. So we had all of those missions. The first thing that I got involved in with them, though, is we got the order to jump train the company. I was assigned to 3 Company, which was filled by Rade Montagnards.
Wow.
And we had interpreters, and I can talk a little bit about them a little later on. But so the first thing we did was to set up a jump school. And those were I'll tell you who those were. The one on the far left was Eluk. He was a red-headed Montagnard, which is very unusual. He was not an albino, but he was red-headed. And he became my personal interpreter throughout my time there. Next to him was a very famous Montagnard, Badau. Badau was incredibly involved with the unit or the organization called Full Robe. It's an acronym.
Freedom, United, Liberation.
I'm not going to try and remember how that goes. But then next to Badau, and I'll try and come back to him a little bit later because
that's fine. That's fine. Yes, sir.
Okay. Next to him was Way, the company commander, and the Recon platoon leader. So I was fortunate because the last thing I did in the Canal Zone was we set up a jump school at Fort Sherman in the Canal Zone for Latin American officers, and they would send them to us for jump training. And so I was very familiar with setting up a jump school. So I was able to share my experience and expertise in setting that jump school up, and we airborne trained 3 Company. That was really a lot of fun. And there wasn't a single trooper, Montagnard trooper, that we had to push out the door. They all were confident that we had taught them properly, and they jumped out that door on their own. What a great bunch of people those Montagnards were. And so we had just finished jump training 3 Company when we got the task of providing flank security for the 4th Infantry Division as they moved north through an area that had been controlled by the bad guys. And bad guys, the only ones I ever ran into were the Army, the NVA. I didn't have any Viet Cong experience. So that was my first introduction to combat. Now, I'm not going to do a war story here, but it's on the internet. It's a couple of different places. It's also in a book or two, Task Force Prong. And we were to provide the security for the fourth ID. And in doing so, we got in a horrendous battle right on the Cambodian border, and were able to survive that and take care of our mission that was providing early warning for the fourth ID so that they could get prepared for the units that were mobilizing and on the march to go after them, which they did later on. But our part of it was done and over with. So it was quite a story, that deployment. But again, if you want me to go over that, we'll in detail. Maybe we could do that another time.
Yes,
I'm not real big about telling war stories anyway.
I thought an interesting little tidbit on the Mike Force, and I had actually dug up a photo from Shelby Stanton's books, which he has a great set of books, Green Berets at War in Southeast Asia. There's two.
Oh, yeah.
There's one book, and then there's a pictorial. But one of the books is talking about, and I think this might be mobile guerrilla force guys, but I remember you mentioning one time about getting resupplied by napalm and canisters, I should say. And there's actually one of the canisters. Could you tell us a little bit about the idea that y'all came up with, or the guys came up with, about Mike Force getting resupplied by napalm canisters?
I will do that. But first, let me say that why that was done is that we had been given a mission called the Blackjack, where we were a mobile guerrilla force to be put into one of the heavily infested base areas that the NBA controlled. And we were supposed to go in there. And the mission was basically we were bait. And we were supposed to harass them enough that they would mass a sizable force against us. And at that time, a conventional unit, which would be on standby to come to our help, and either boots on the ground or frequently air support, which is really almost immediate in all times. But during the time, we did not get resupplied by helicopter like conventional units did. We came up with the idea of putting what we needed in terms of rations, ammo, ammunition, or medical supplies in a napalm container and attach a drogue chute to it. And the way that it would be deployed would be there would be 3 or 4 A1Es take to the air, only one of them loaded with our napalm containers. The other ones would follow in, and they would run around the area fairly close by, dropping live napalm containers. And this was to help cover what our resupply was really going to be. And so the one with our stuff would fly in pretty low and drop off these containers. And they all worked fine. We even had one that the chute didn't work on, the drag chute didn't work on, but we still was able to salvage most of the stuff that was inside it. So that kept going pretty good. That was Blackjack 23 that you saw the picture, the A team there. It was a full A team, and all of the typical A team positions were filled with people of that MOS. And so there weren't supposed to be any medical evacuations either, but nobody really believed that. And when it came that we needed to get somebody out to try and save their life, we did get medevacs there. Those, of course, attracted attention to us. But I went in my year there in the Mike Force, I was on 3 different mobile guerrilla force operations. The longest ones was 6 weeks. And that, I think back on that now, and that's hard, the hardships that we went through there, just soaking wet all the time, no change of clothing for 6 weeks. If you stood still, you're going to get fungus growing all over you, And actually, that was true for a lot of people, even myself, to bring back that kind of skin rashes, skin problems from experiences like that. And now, yeah, that was the second Blackjack that we had. It was commanded by Chuck Fry, and I was his same sergeant too. And he and I had gone back a good ways, and I wound up serving with him one more time in my life. What a great guy. He passed away not too long ago.
Legendary SF man.
You can see that some of us had some whiskers after being out there a few days. And you wouldn't want to get within smell distance of us because it would be overwhelming, And but we made it, and we didn't. We had everything in a backpack that we were going to live on for all those long weeks, and so you would be breaking your toothbrush in half just to cut down the load, And so we didn't carry very much, and I guess one of the biggest problems, we had to provide our own water, and so we had to always be on the lookout for water sources, and some of them we would get to a pond. It was the first one we had seen in a long time, and it would be covered with nasty stuff floating on the top, and we would have to scoop it aside and fill our canteens from that. So needless to say, everybody came down with dysentery from that. And another thing that was in that water, I don't know that this was a scientific fact, but the chemicals that poisoned everybody so bad over there.
Agent Orange.
Yeah, Agent Orange. Several of my team guys wound up dying of cancer caused by that. I never did come down with it though, which makes me think that, your DNA probably says that, okay, you're susceptible to getting it, and that guy isn't. And that had to be the way it worked, because I never came down with cancer. Maybe I should say yet. What do you think, bud?
Thank the Lord. Yes, sir. Yeah. Absolutely.
And so
6 weeks. Wow.
Yeah, I'm getting a little backed up on what I was talking about here.
You had just completed the 2 Blackjack operations.
Yeah, the first Blackjack we did, and then the last picture you showed with the guys with the whiskers, that was the second one I was on, and that one was done to provide information intelligence to the 1st Cav Division, and which turned out to be my favorite conventional unit. I thought they were just absolutely, completely professional, and they reacted to our needs 100%. And for example, they had a battalion on standby for us, so that if we developed a target, they would send that battalion in. They never had to send the battalion in, but they did send in a company one time, which got us out of the trouble. And but they were such a good unit to work for. And there was a kind of a funny thing, though, to many people, that one day we were in contact and we needed some air support or gunship support. So we went to the CAV and said, can you send us some gunships, to get us started? And they said, yeah, okay. And a little while, okay, it's on the way. And so we're waiting for the sound of the gunships coming in and hear this noise coming in. And all of a sudden, here comes some CH-47s, the one that looks like a a banana,
Mm-hmm.
and it was their idea of a gunship. It was an experiment. They called it Guns A Go Go. It had guns sticking out every possible port on there, and it actually did a pretty good job for us. But they didn't last. I heard later on that those were shot down so fast that, that they didn't try and repeat that experience. But that was, I think everybody, all us SF guys like that story about the Guns A Go Go. But anyway, so the next Blackjack I went on, they still liked the idea of it, but they were spreading us pretty thin. This was when the Dak To situation was building up, and we had already lost almost an entire company in the Dak To area when that battle started developing. The camp had the A camp at Dak To had sent a patrol out, and it wasn't that far out of their immediate area when the patrol or the company, our Mike Force company, it was First Company, was ambushed with this huge, elaborate ambush that just wiped out the whole company pretty much. And there were 3 Americans that were with the company. One of them survived and was able to E&E back to Dak To, but the other 2 guys were killed. And you know, I didn't say what we were doing out there, did I? The reason the Mike Force went in there was the A camp had sent a patrol out, and that patrol had got ambushed, and their patrol scattered, leaving the 2 American bodies out there. And so the Mike Force job was to go pick up the bodies and bring them back. So that was the company that went out and got ambushed themselves. And there's a lot of speculation and a lot of Monday quarterbacking about that operation. Why did the First Company get in that situation? But you know, I'm not one to quarterback that operation. It was sad that we lost so many people to it. But so that is the beginning of Dak To, and they also wanted a Blackjack to go in and patrol the other side of the valley, because they had some kind of intelligence that their headquarters, the NVA headquarters of this division that was coming through that area, was on that side of the valley. And so I was assigned with 3 other Americans and 1 Montagnard platoon to act as they called it a Blackjack, but it just was really a combat patrol. And we ran the length of that valley. We never did find a headquarters, and really never got into any bad trouble. But the units that was a 173rd, I'm starting to stutter here, but
oh, you're fine, sir. Don't worry about it.
The 173rd had been called up as soon as we lost our company there, and it looked like there was a big show going on. They brought the 173rd Airborne Brigade up there. The first thing they went there was our people. The guy that we had E&E'd back was able to, with our commander, to brief the commander of the 173rd there to tell them what was on the ridge lines above the camp. You know, don't go up there just willy-nilly. There's bad guys waiting for you up there. Well, the 173rd sent 2 companies up in trail, and they lost both companies. We sat there, and when that was going on, you could see them bringing back the bodies down and load them out of that airstrip down there. They lost almost 2 companies to that. And that wasn't the worst of it. I think it was a hill called 875 that by this time I was out of the AO, because I was getting ready to go back to the States. But 875 was a horrendous battle for our conventional troops too. But that was, I'm trying to think of whether that was the first Cav or, oh, I'm not going to bet my right arm on that one. Memories are.
The 173rd ended up jumping in Junction City. What was it, in 67 or early 67 there at 875?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, thanks for the help. Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
So it stayed hot for a while there.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I was taken out of the field and I went back to the States. And so picking up my career, I'm a very senior E7 by this time. And, and there wasn't a lot of E8s that wanted that team sergeant position in the Mike Force. When I left there, and this is a good story too, my boss, Chuck Fry, asked me to sit down and go through a list of the NCOs that were assigned in 2 Corps at the various A camps and pick one to take my place. Well, it wound up being, oh yeah, look at young Chuck there. It wound up being, I picked John Hobbs. He was an E8 and he came up there and he did a good job while he was assigned as a team sergeant of at the Mike Force there. And, there's so many things that I wanted to talk about right there in the Mike Force too. I'm going to stop where I'm at and back up in the Mike Force.
Okay, that's fine.
The Montagnards had a big political organization that I mentioned earlier. And the one guy I pointed out, Badau, was the boss of that. I think they used president as a title, and while that was going on, we actually helped Full Row a lot by sending weapons, medical supplies, ammunition, clothing, everything that we could sneak across the border. We would do that. We did that on a kind of a common stream and never got caught. We were pretty clever at it. But there came a point in the Full Row becoming so important that the North Vietnamese were getting a little leery of what was going on with them. They didn't want another well-organized force in their backyard. So the next thing that happened was they put out a death warrant on Badau. They knew that he was such an exceptional person, but we beat him to it. We smuggled him across the border and into Cambodia. Now the Cambodian royalty and government knew about Badau's reputation. He was brilliant. He spoke about 4 or 5 different languages. He had been somewhat educated, the little bit that the Vietnamese allowed Montagnards. Montagnards were really discriminated against by the Vietnamese, but Badau had been able to get some education. But the Cambodians, like I say, knew of his reputation. So they commissioned him as a major in their army, just like that, bang. Well, I told you that I had returned to the States after the Mike Force tour. And at a point, they were starting up this, the Army, the regular Army, was starting up this program educating NCOs. And at this point, it was the senior NCOs of E7 rank that they assigned to or sent to Fort Benning, the infantry school, to go through their course. I happened to make undergraduate of that course, by the way. But anyway, I was walking down infantry hall one day, and I heard Ramsey, and I look, there's Badau. They had so much of Badau. Not only did they commission him, but they sent him to Fort Benning for more education, more military education. Well, I was able to take Badau home with me over a weekend and show him what the United States was alike and was like. And that was such a wonderful, rewarding experience, taking him and showing him the sights, if you will,
Wow.
But Badau, I want to continue with his story while I'm on it. Badau was, I'm trying to think of how much later this was. I'm pretty bad on timelines anymore. But a couple of years later, let me see, the Khmer Rouge had just about conquered the whole country. Badau had to escape with his family. He had a wife, a beautiful Montagnard wife, and a couple of children. And they holed up in the French embassy. Well, the Khmer Rouge surrounded that embassy and said, "You send Badau out here or we're going to annihilate everybody in the embassy." Well, Badau, being the man that he was, took his family and they went outside and were immediately executed.
God.
And we lost a phenomenal human being when that happened there. It's so sad. Now, Bud, did you see that I put the picture of a book that is newly published online about Full Row?
I have not, unfortunately.
I'll make sure that you see that. It's a book that a friend of mine has done a phenomenal job of establishing the whole history of the Full Row movement.
Wow.
And it even talks a little bit about Task Force Prong in there too, but it talks a lot about Badau. My friend that wrote this book also knew Badau, and he was really a key figure in that Full Row movement and helping them. And you just have to read that book. The book is just phenomenal. I'll make sure that you see that.
Yeah, I've got to get a copy. Yeah, absolutely.
That book, yeah. And yeah, I got my name in it. I got my name in a few books.
You do.
I'll tell you something else about Task Force Prong. I had always been that was the big battle I'm talking about on a dry lake bed. It goes by the name of dry lake bed or Polly-Wolly Doodles. I don't know where that came from, but in different books talking about that action, that's the different names it went by. And but I would always be a friend of the famous military historian S.L.A. Marshall. He wrote about all the wars, even the Korean War, and he was known to put together his version of history by interviewing all kinds of people, not just taking it from one source, but interviewing people on the ground in different responsibilities and assignments and stuff like that.
Excellent.
Well, when he put out a book, and it might even be that one you mentioned by Stanton, he did not do that. He took the whole story from one guy, and I'm not going to get into name calling here, but he got all of his information to one guy. And I wrote him a letter, and I said, basically, what's going on? You're supposed to be the guy that establishes a history by talking to a lot of people. There was a lot of people you could have talked to. Well, much to my surprise, he answered me with a letter, and he said that, yeah, I was right and everything, that he was in a big hurry or some flimsy excuse like that. But anyway, I got the letter, and I gave it to Jason Hardy. You know him, right?
Oh, yes, sir.
So he's got the letter, and
the reason I know, besides talking to y'all, the reason I know so much about SOG, this is one of his books right here, guys.
Yeah.
If y'all don't have any of Jason's books, and if you're interested in SOG, you are messing up big time. You got to get them. Got to get them.
That's right.
That's amazing. I mean, I've just recently learned about it and hearing even the Mike Force gentlemen having contacts or interactions with the full road. That's very interesting. And several viewers have said in the comments saying they're going to have to find out the book and get it as well. That's very interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Well, I'm glad I've provided something you didn't know about. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
And so did you just do the one tour, the 12-month tour with the Mike Force, or
I
was
did.
this
I lived through it too.
a Viking tour? I mean, you
Yeah.
guys were just
I only was injured or wounded, if you will, one time, and it was not anything that made me sent back to the States and everything. And it was it hurt, but I stayed in my position for the whole tour. Yeah, and so then let's see. I went back to Fort Bragg, and it was the 7th group then, and the 7th group. And I'm trying to. Oh, I went to E Company. I was assigned to E Company of the 7th. By this time, they had come up with a couple of other groups, the 3rd and the 6th and everything. But I went to E Company of the 7th, and I was there 2 years before I got orders for return to Vietnam. And so, this is where I get to talk about John Hobbs, the guy that I shanghaied for the Mike Force to replace me. And when I got to Vietnam, along with everybody else, we all got diverted. You're not going to go to a special forces unit. We're diverting you. Well, in my case, they diverted me to a ranger company that was in support of the 5th Mech up at Quan Tri.
Oh.
And and they did that so that we could keep our jump pay. And but the ranger company didn't want a thing to do with us, really. They had their own people. I can understand that too. They had their own NCO set up. I even offered to go as a gunner or whatever on one of his patrols if they wanted to use. I didn't want to just sit around. Well, I didn't have to sit around too much, Bo, because Quan Tri had a launch site from CCN up there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going down the road one day, and a Jeep passed by me, screeching on brakes, backing up, and damn if it wasn't John Hobbs. And John said, "What are you doing?" Well, I told him. He said, "Well, I tell you what, this is a good payback time for me. Why don't you let me get you assigned to CCN?" And so I said, "Great." So, I mean, that paperwork went through like overnight. And so I went down there, and he introduced me to the sergeant major and the commander. And that commander was a story in himself. He wound up getting in a lot of trouble for getting fake.
Oh, yeah.
Awards. I know you know that story.
Mm-hmm.
So I got down there, and he said, "Okay, Bob, you're going to be the platoon sergeant for the North Platoon." There was a North Platoon, a South Platoon, and then a Vietnamese platoon. Well, those were E8 slots, but again, here I am. I'm really a senior NCO by now, and it turned out that I outranked every NCO E7 on the whole compound. And
wow.
And so I got to take the slot of the North Platoon sergeant with 10 recon teams under my belt. And one of the first things I did there was I wanted to go out with one of the teams. I picked Cliff Newman's team.
Yes, sir.
And he accepted me as the 172nd or whatever. There's Cliff there. Sammy Hernandez. Oh, that's a Halo team, yeah. And Cliff Newman, a phenomenal guy. He really is.
Oh, yes.
He's still here in Arizona too. So we're
Wonderful,
pretty close
man.
to each other. Yeah. And so I spent the rest of my tour at CCN there. I didn't go out per se with another team like I did with Cliff. I went on some of the things like the extractions or the insertions a few times. I know did that once. Dutch Waringa. Do you know his name, Bud?
Oh, yes, sir. He's got a great book out.
Yeah,
Wow.
Oh yeah, he did. That was a good book too. Phenomenal background, that guy. You'd
Absolutely.
never know it. He was the most humble guy, and we became friends. And I did never see him again, unfortunately. He was supposed to publish or push his book at one of the SOARS reunions in Las Vegas, and I missed him just by an hour or two. And and then he passed away not long after that. Dutch. Yeah, that was his nickname, Dutch. Yeah. And good book, by the way.
Excellent book. Excellent.
And but stories that just really you'd never know about. Dutch would never tell you anything about his background. I never knew any of that. But later on when he did the book and everything, it was uncovered and for people to know what his background really was like. Then the next significant thing that happened with me at CCN in the Recon Company was the 400-foot static line jump with Garry Robb and two Chuhoys. Yeah, that was it. And that's been published in a couple of places too. So I won't go into the history of that again, unless you want to talk about some parts of it later on. But talking about my career still, I left CCN shortly after that experience. And, one of the things that I still am kind of bitter about was they provided the people that did those jumps, and there were a lot of jumps done. There was a couple of Halo ones that followed right after our jump, and they got all the glory. And a lot of them received some kind of decoration. And we didn't even get an honorable mention, Garry and I. And so going forward a few years, and I can't remember the year, but it was like 10 years ago, they invited all of the people that were still around that had done a jump during the Vietnam War with SOG to come for a 2-day ceremony. And that all made up for everything that we had missed. That was 2 wonderful days. It really was. And we got to experience a lot of each other there, the comradeship that a lot of us hadn't talked to the other people that had done that. That was the first time we were able to do that. And of course, Billy Wall was there. Oh, by the way, Billy Wall replaced John Hobbs when John Hobbs derosed. And so I got to work with Billy. That's the second time, once in E Company of the, there's Billy. And which one is Billy? I worked with Billy in between tours in E Company there, and again at CCN. So I got to know Billy a bit. So when I left CCN there, continuing on with my career, I went back and they were going to assign me to the Special Forces school system that was getting set up. And, you know, but I have missed a lot of stuff about my earlier, when I first went in, before I went to the Canal Zone. There was stuff there that I didn't talk about.
We're going to have to do a second one. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
And maybe after I say this, it might be a good time to.
That's what we'll do. We'll lay out some stuff, because people have already said if you wouldn't be mine, they'd love to hear about a little bit about the jump, and then that gun story you captured. I think for part 2 would be interesting too.
Okay,
but,
well then let's just cut it at me returning back to Fort Bragg from the CCN tour.
Okay.
And I'll get with you and and we'll schedule another time.
That sounds perfect.
Okay.
Absolutely perfect. We had a great, it's been 50 minutes and everybody is just flooded in saying, please absolutely join us again. So I think that'll be a good idea. We'll shut down here, and I'll let you get with me. I'll make out some notes, and we'll.
I will too.
Yeah, perfect.
I'll go back and pick up some of the things I missed there, trying to talk off cuff, but I don't think I did too bad.
No, it's been excellent. This is what we're here for. You guys put way too much pressure on yourself. We could listen to y'all read a phone book, sir.
Okay.
But all right, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and shut it down. You heard Mr. Bob. He's going to join us again. We're going to make some notes. So everybody just pay attention to the show and the updates, and we'll go from there. So everybody have a good day. Mr. Bob, hang on a sec. I'm shutting down.
Okay.
Everybody have a good day, and we will see y'all later.